Um, so we have Tim. Tim with Wildish will be starting off. Tim, are you able to I see you in here. Are you
Yeah,
able
I'm in.
to Okay, great. Great, 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 great. All right. Yeah. Tim here will be starting off here, representing his firm Wildish. They've done some great work with ODOT, and happy to have them here and to share some great, great insight and experience, what it's like to be a prime contractor with ODOT and some tips and tricks for to share with us. So, Tim, whenever you're ready, feel free to take it away.
All right, Omar. Thank you. Thanks everybody for being part of this today. Hope that what I have to share is going to be helpful to you and inspirational too. I'm Tim Hendricks. I'm the manager for Wildish. Wildish is home based in Eugene, Oregon, but we have an area office in Fairview out by the Troutdale Airport. Um, the kinds of work that we do as a prime are highways, bridges, a lot of ADA ramp type projects now, and airfields. And we do that work all over Oregon. Um, Strong emphasis in the Portland area, but also a pretty large presence in Eastern Oregon in various towns and communities throughout Eastern Oregon. Uh, the type of work that we traditionally, typically, always look for subcontractors on are electric work, landscaping, surveying, traffic control work, which also includes the signing for traffic control, as well as permanent signs, guardrail, asphalt paving, flat work and curbs, saw cutting, striping, concrete pumping, testing of various products like concrete and asphalt, and then finally trucking. Those are all areas of projects that we would typically be looking to subcontract out to interested parties. The current workload that we have uh, for Wildish includes Oregon 224 from Milwaukee back towards Rust Road, Newburgh Dundee Phase 2A, which is underway already. The Rust job is starting soon. We have Rufus, Arlington, the Dalles, 5 bridges that we're rehabbing up there for ODOT. The St. John's Bridge over the top of Cathedral Park in North Portland. We're doing a rehabilitation of the concrete structures underneath the bridge. In Burns and Hines, we're doing ADA ramps through those 2 towns. We're also doing a very small amount of private work here and there. I would say 99% of our work, though, is public work, certified payrolls, prevailing wage type jobs. And we're currently maybe 95% of our work is for ODOT. So it's typically bid work, either through the normal bid process on Thursday mornings at 9 or through Oregon buys, where ODOT puts out a certain amount of their usually smaller contracts for prime contractors to bid upon. I'm going to skip to down in the questions. There's one that says, what was the process that Wildish followed when it became a prime contractor ultimately? Well, the company started in 1935, and we're much like many of you smaller firms that are out there now. We didn't have any money for anything then. It was long before I was thought of, but the people, the Wildish family was broke. And there was a little bit of money going on in construction. And so the dad and later some of the older sons started driving dump trucks for people. Um, and back then, you guys aren't going to believe this, but their pay was 80 cents a day, no matter how many hours they worked. 80 cents a day is what they got for driving their dump trucks. In today's world, we would say, wow, how do they live on that? But obviously, people lived on it because they had a family of 11. They made it work. And not far down the road, maybe 3 or 4 years, they decided that they ought to sell the 2 family vehicles they had because they lived close enough to downtown Eugene. They could walk to anything and buy a dump truck. And a dump truck back in those days was a 2.5 yard dump truck, a real big one. Nowadays, I think there's some 350 Fords out there that have beds that big on them. And they bought that truck. A couple of years, they bought a second, a third, and a fourth. They had several boys, so all the boys had to drive trucks. And at some point, they looked around and said, we're just as smart as some of these contractors out there that we're hauling rock to. Why don't we do some construction work? And so that's how they broke into construction. Very slowly at first, some private work, getting their feet wet, figuring out, how do you estimate a job? How do you put a price on it? And then how do you actually build it? How do you find people to work for you beyond the family members? Family members are conscripted in, they have to work. But other people, you have to attract them. And then how do you bill a job? How do you put out a price or an invoice to someone so they pay you? And they did that. And then at some point they decided that they'd get into owning some sand and gravel sources. Back then, if the land was along a river, it had gravel in it, and you didn't need a permit. You could just go dig it. In fact, you could go out in the river and dig rocks. So they acquired some land. They sold rock. They got crushers to process the rock. Got into concrete plants. Got into an asphalt plant, and that grew into what it is today. So, 90 years of time they've spent building the business up, and today they're one of the very largest family-owned, privately held companies doing our kind of construction work that I described in Oregon. If not the largest, then we're real close to it. And the company does well over $100 million a year. So baby steps along the way, a little bit bigger steps, a little bit bigger, and finally into projects that now can be a $5 million, $10 million, $20, $30 million job, and we can handle it. So that's how we became a prime with ODOT, and I don't think that's a path that is too different from what many of you need to look forward to. It's not a get rich quick scheme type thing, and there's risk associated with looking at a set of plans and specs and putting a price on it, and then prosecuting the work and collecting money for it. And not every year is a good year, and not every job's a good job. But if you make good, solid economic decisions along the way and don't get your head out over your skis with too much work, and just handle the work that that you can handle with the size that you are at the time. Don't reach so far out that all of a sudden you have too much work for what your management team can handle. That's how Wildish made it work, and I think that's how others can make it work too. How do we as Wildish connect with small businesses on projects? Well, a lot of it is direct contact with those who have shown interest in working with us. And they show that interest in lots of ways. Sometimes it's a blind phone call to us. Sometimes we might be calling someone we heard about, and so we're actually engaging with the small business. But either way, you share who you are, and we share our part. They share what their plans are, what they want to do. We ask a lot of questions about experience. What makes you think that you can be an electrical contractor? Where did you get some exposure to that? Because you can't just jump into work and know how to do it. You got to pay the dues and learn about the work from other people who can teach you. We can teach people, and we do today, a lot of people in site work, some in concrete flat work, some in pipe work. But some of those other areas of projects that I described that we're looking for subs in, we don't know a lot about. Like, for instance, I wouldn't be the guy to go to teach you about how to do electrical work or which plants to select for landscaping. We're the wrong guys for that. But the kind of work that we do in-house, we're happy to help people with that. We're not going to be able to price out your work at the time you give quotes to us and the rest of the market. We can't do it that way. That's feels like that's double dipping when we help you put out a price to other people. But if you were to come to us and say, can you help me with, give me a little bit of small work and help me do that. I'm talking real small, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 worth of work. We'll help people with that. They need to show a genuine interest in the work. They need to be folks that are upfront and honest with us about what their plans are. They need to, we can't finance them. They've got to have a way to have a little bit of money to cash flow whatever work they're doing. They need to be able to acquire insurance. At that level, when they first start out, they're not going to be able to get bonds, but we need to work towards growing them to where they can bond work, because ultimately when you're a prime, for sure you have to bond. When you're a sub, some primes require subcontractors to bond from time to time. So those are all things we can help some with. We can help with the paperwork aspect of dealing with ODOT. Our contract ad people help subcontractors all the time who are just learning how to do certified payrolls or submittals. They walk them through the steps that we've learned to help them, because when they're successful, those subs that are working for us, then we're successful. We have formally mentored a few small businesses in the past. Those firms are still in business, and they still reach out to us from time to time with, how would you approach this type of work? And if it's a job we're not bidding on, we'll give them our thoughts on it. And so we continue that mentoring now because we have a relationship with those people. When they call and say, will you help on something? We're happy to help. I think those are my introductory comments, and I think they answer the majority of the questions, the topics that ODOT wanted me to speak on. So I'm certainly open, Omar, to however you want to proceed from here. Omar, are you there to facilitate questions? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I just cut out for a little bit there. Yeah, so Tim, if you could just drop your email in the chat in case people have questions, they could follow up with you. And if you could just stick around after the other primes go on in case there's like some more questions that come up, we would truly appreciate that. But yeah, thank you so much, Tim, for this great insight and great information from your firm. We really appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tim. So the next prime contractor that we have here is going to be from Emery Sons, and the representative is Aaron Slowick. Aaron, if you're available, please feel free to jump on and share a little bit. And then yeah, Tim's information is on the chat as well. So Aaron, whenever you're ready.
All right, thanks, Omar. Yeah, so my name's Aaron Slowick. I'm with Emery Sons Construction Group. Been here for about 9 years doing estimating. I'm actually our lead estimator and also a senior project manager here. Been in the industry for 15 years or so. OSU grad in the construction engineering management world. You're going to hear a lot of the same things that Tim said from us. We're a similar contractor to them. We do about $120 million a year. We do earthwork, utility installation. I would say that's kind of our specialty is pipe work and deep pipe work. So sewer, storm, water, any of that stuff. And then we also do our own concrete work, flat work anyways. So as far as subcontractors that we seek out to do work for us, pretty similar to Tim as well. We look for landscape, electrical, paving, striping, signage, survey, trucking, materials testing, um, and we also do solicit for concrete flat work numbers. We don't have a huge capacity in-house, so we do, based on our volume, we do sub out a decent amount of concrete work as well. Currently, ODOT contracts. I'm known as kind of the ODOT guy here in the office. We don't do quite the volume that Wildish does with ODOT in particular. We do a lot of public contracting. I would say right now we're probably 75 or 80% in the public contracting world, and probably about 25% or so in the private side. As far as ODOT jobs that I'm currently working on, currently I have a roundabout going on in between Monmouth and Rickreall on Highway 99. I've done various ADA ramp jobs, highway jobs through the years for ODOT. I have quite a bit of experience working with them. As far as the next question, connecting and seeking small businesses to work with. We've been around for almost 60 years now. Over the years, doing a lot of work with a lot of different people. We have a big list of firms that we regularly call on, that we've generated over the years. There's also those that we'll just reach out if we're on a plan holders list or at a pre-bid, and then we'll get them added to the list of people that we contact. As far as best practices or elements we look for in partners to team with, we're definitely looking for people who know the work and have the capacity to complete the work on time and efficiently. Scheduling and coordination is a big part of doing the work we do, and so people that help make that easy for us are definitely going to be at the top of our list. ODOT also is very paperwork heavy as far as all the reports you have to submit. Having subs that understand the paperwork and can fill that stuff out and get it to us efficiently and on time is very helpful for us. We do train or mentor small businesses in helping out with this, because we know it can be a struggle, and we have office staff, especially on like the certified payroll and those type of reports, that will help and have helped on some of our subs with that process. I personally, have helped subs to fill out various forms and make sure that all that's required is submitted. And we've also helped small businesses in other ways, like Tim said, usually on smaller scopes, but yeah, we're able to help with renting or loaning some of our equipment to help out if that firm doesn't necessarily have the capacity to purchase something that we own, being able to rent that to them, or helping with expedited payments, sometimes not on the not necessarily like huge payments or giant scopes, but yeah, if there's small scopes where it's like, okay, we can understand that you guys need a little help in expediting payments, sometimes we're able to do that. And then as far as how we became a prime, it was little by little, kind of like Tim said. I mean, obviously being around 60 years, I wasn't around 60 years ago, but we, as far as I know, the story was very similar. Just starting small. They started actually as a small concrete contractor, doing driveways and sidewalks, and then slowly, and that was out of a station wagon back in the back in the 60s, and then slowly worked its way into buying a backhoe and doing some utility work, installing some catch basins and whatnot. And then before you know it, we've grown into the size of contractor we are and have the ability to, bond pretty much any size of job that we want to, and and have the capacity to do that. So, but it didn't happen overnight for sure. It took a lot of hard work uh, and learning the process. And yeah, there's lots of ups and downs in this industry, and just learning from mistakes and learning from and just being able to adapt to the environment out there. There's good times where it's easy to get work, and then there's not so good times where it's pretty difficult to get work. So this industry isn't for everybody, but if you keep with it and just keep learning, that tends to hopefully work out. So that's about all I got, Omar, unless there's anything else you need from me.
Great. Thank you so much, Aaron. Great information, great insight. Yeah, if you could just please put your email in the chat in case anybody wants to follow up with you. And then just stick around for a little bit longer as well as we near the end in case people have more questions or anything like that. Truly appreciate it, Aaron, your time for being here and sharing this great information.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, and then now moving on to our final prime contractor, we have Dennis here with Kiewit, and I will also be sharing my screen for that. So Dennis, whenever you're ready, I'm gonna also start sharing here.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? You can hear me, right, Omar?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you can run the slides for me, that'd be good, because when I guess my picture's up here already, you'll kind of realize that technology passed me by in the 70s, and I'm not sure I can keep up. But I just want to say that Tim and Aaron were great, and I like the stories about starting small and doing what you do best, and growing slowly over time. And since Kiewit is a North American contractor, large prime contractor, doing a little bit bigger work, but Kiewit too is a 140-year-old company that started in Omaha, Nebraska. They were bricklayers. The Kiewit brothers, Peter Kiewit and Sons, were bricklayers, and they started small as well, right? And now we're probably in all 50 states and Canada, and we're growing to a really large contractor, kind of specializing probably in these mega projects. And because there's 10 questions that Omar passed along, and like I say, the other guys did great at it. I can do the first 5 questions in pictures, although I didn't quite have them in numerical order. And I don't know how many of you are out there by Oregon City, or if I'm messing with traffic, but there's one of our big floating cranes that I helped get down and from Seattle, and another moorage in Northern California. But it takes a marine fleet, but it also takes a lot of small and disadvantaged contractors to help us do every project. So there's kind of a good visual of probably, and this might be right, this might be ODOT, one of the biggest contracts ever, right? Maybe Rose Quarter is about that size or bigger, but this is, 450 million on bid day. It's grown a little bit. So, and I'll kind of come back to this. I have another picture of the ODOT Abernathy Bridge. But Omar, why don't you go to the next one? I'm supposed to introduce who I am, so I haven't done that yet. But so I'm Dennis All. I'm the diversity manager on the ODOT's I-205 improvements project, Abernathy. We call it Abernathy Bridge, not really in the official title, but and not that I have it yet, but just by chance, that's the I-5 interstate bridge. That'll be another one we'll be pursuing when it ever comes out, right? Which it's coming. We're going to do it right now. Although I don't know how many else your other people know, but I think I went to my first Columbia River crossing outreach event in probably 2015, 2014, and I wish we would have started then, because we'd be done by now, and it would have cost half as much or a third as much. But that's another one that's on our horizon, right? So, and if you ever need to get a hold of me, Omar will be able to share my slides and my contact information, so anybody that wants it can have it. So and a little bit, when you get on an ODOT job with us, we're a we're a union contractor with the heavy highway trade. So carpenters, laborers, cement masons, operating engineers, iron workers. So I know not all of the subcontractors are signatory, but there's a lot of project labor agreements that City of Portland does and other agencies, and we might have something like that on Interstate Bridge. But I have a 50-year relationship with the local labor unions, and I can help small businesses with that. So so why don't you click to the next one, Omar? One of the next ones is what types of work do we do? And it might not be the very next slide, but I like this because I said I can tell you in pictures. So a lot of you might know, for light rail work is one of them. So there's the Tillicum crossing. We did the bridge, and of all the, I'm from Portland, went to Portland State University, and all the bridges we have in Portland, and we built this one, and you don't let cars go on it, but that's still a good thing, right? So buses and light rail and bicyclists can get to downtown Portland from the east side. So that's a job we're pretty proud of, and the community should be too. So see what else what else I have for pictures, Omar. So yeah, so on the right there, that's the Columbia Water treatment plant that Kiewit's doing for the City of Portland. And we have another job at Bull Run, also a City of Portland job. It's kind of paused right now, but we'll get back to it. But you need a lot of subcontractors on the wastewater treatment plants. And then the one on the left, we're on the design. We're helping, it's not really ODOT, but that's the Hood River Bridge that we're helping further the design, and hopefully it turns into the construction contract if all the funding comes through. So that's a good one, and I like these pictures where it shows Mount Hood and just Columbia River. It's so beautiful, and I want to get back to Oregon. I'm on the Washington side, but I still consider Portland my home. So, and the next one, I think I finally talk about what Kiewit does and the type of work we do. And I've kind of explained some of it already, but this one is so water treatment facilities like we're doing for the city. I'm with the Kiewit Bridge and Marine District, so dams, bridges, naval facilities, and that's kind of my background. And here's a trestle out at the Abernathy Bridge, and there's also fish passage improvements we're doing for WashDOT, and light rail transit projects we did for TriMet like Tillicum, or in Puget Sound for Sound Transit. And I actually came from General Construction Company. It was well, I thought it was a big company when I started, right? It was a local marine contractor on the Willamette River. So still 50 years later, I'm still working on the Willamette River, which I think is kind of cool. But General Construction became a Kiewit company in about 2001, I think. So when Kiewit had the San Francisco Oakland Bay Bridge doing the foundation. So it's kind of an oversimplification, but Kiewit was going to have to rent 4 or 5 of General Construction's floating cranes and 8 or 10 other barges for 4 or 5 years. So Kiewit actually acquired the entire company. So General Construction became a Kiewit company, and we've been a Kiewit company ever since the early 2000s. So, but I actually, although we're large and can do mega projects, it's actually a good thing because we have a large staff. We could cut staff up or get smaller to fit the moves or the changes in staffing on these mega projects. And I like this picture here. So a lot of this Kiewit can self-perform a lot of things, but you see the concrete pumper guy here, and the driller is another large subcontractor, but we don't do everything ourselves. And we have a traffic control subcontractor on the ODOT work at Abernathy. So, and a lot like Tim, and the other one I was going to tell Tim is, he says he's working on the St. John's Bridge, and that's where I started, where General Construction's yard was underneath the St. John's Bridge, and there's another marine contractor in there now. But I like to hear about all these places that where I started. So click to the next one, will you, Omar, and see, those are the things that Kiewit does. But in working with Kiewit, I think I want to talk about in the next one, we'll talk about the different scopes that Kiewit subcontracts out. See if we can click to that one next. So, not too different than what Tim and Aaron were talking about, right? So we do concrete, we subcontract out concrete flat work, concrete pumping, dewatering, environmental construction and support, landscaping is one, reinforcing bar. We do a lot of things ourselves, but almost always subcontract reinforcing steel, traffic controls one, survey work, trucking as everybody does, electrical work. We do some ourselves, but like on the ODOT work we're doing at Abernathy, we have good DBEs working for us, like Maurice Raming of O'Neill Electric or O'Neill Construction. He's our DBE electrical sub doing big thing. I mean, small business doing big things. Advanced Government Services is doing the traffic control at Abernathy. They're a DBE we know from up here. And even the civil site work, we have, I think Kiewit has more Caterpillar equipment than almost any contractor in North America, but we have not one but two civil DBEs with their own civil scopes, right? So, and they're pretty. McDonald Excavating does great work and very capable. You know, a mid-sized DBE that knows how to do ODOT work. So that's just kind of a flavor of what we look for, and we're gonna. And I think the federal regulations, they want you to, you know, carve off smaller pieces for the small businesses and on what if you're on a job with Kiewit, we can coordinate with you and work with you. You know, you have to do your own work scope, but you learn from Kiewit when you're on a Kiewit job. So that works good, and that's part of some of my other answers. So so those are the typical the work that we or subcontract scopes we typically sent out to bid for DBEs, and like I say, we have DBEs in most of those scopes out at Abernathy right now. So if I run down the other things we do, so to talk about, so there's and I like that one. I got a little story there. That's Tilcombe Crossing, but talking about Abernathy again, or maybe can you clip back a couple to show that where we're drilling off the trestle at Abernathy. I hope that doesn't take you back too far, Omar. So that one there. So, but just to kind of, or that next one, yeah, that one there's fine. So that is and the ODOT people can probably describe that maybe a little better than me, but technically it's a seismic upgrade project, right? So we're widening the bridge. There's new concrete columns you can see there, and we're doing the foundation for that, where we're gonna be able to do a third lane in each direction. We're gonna add that, strengthen it so nothing happens during an earthquake or a seismic event. There's on-ramps and on-ramps and off-ramps we're improving so we can get it on and off from Oregon City and West Lynn across there. And there's going to be, you know, local pedestrian and bike paths as well. So that's a little bit about the $500 million job we're doing for ODOT right now. So yeah, switch back up, and maybe I'm done with. I think that's all the ones I have in pictures, but I want to talk about that job. And then the other question that Omar wanted me to address was how we connect with small businesses, and it's kind of. It's a thing that, and Tim and Aaron talk about it the same way. I look in the co-bid directory, so I think it's important to have, you know, DBEs, get your certified work description and describe what you do. And I always say one of my other bits of advice is to, you know, focus on what you do best. Try not to be everything to everybody. I think as you're small and growing, you know, focus on the work scopes that you do the very best. I also on the big jobs, I'll advertise in the Portland DJC, and I encourage all the DBEs or any small business to get on. We use Building Connected through the Kiewit Supply Network. They kind of maintain that, but to be that way, you get registered on there and you get my email blast, and we can kind of search there to see if you're electrical or concrete sub or steel erection or reinforcing bar or traffic control, whatever you do. And then the other thing, I meet a lot of businesses at outreach events, and we've had outreach events. I think I've been to every IBR event or most of them down there. We were at Clark College a couple months ago. We did one at Awami, I think, sometime maybe even a year ago. Kiewit, we did our own outreach in Vancouver. I kind of teamed with Apex Accelerator and got a spot in downtown Vancouver, and we did our own IBR and Hood River outreach events. So I meet a lot of businesses at outreach events, right? So that's another way to contact with us. And part of the best practices and teaming that I've learned, I says, if when you bid to Kiewit, I think when you respond to our request for quote, I mean, be clear in your bid, what you're going to do, and give me your bid inclusions and exclusions, right? So, if you give me a lump sum price to excavate a trench, I mean, you should put down there, this price is based on 5 days a week, 40 hours a week. Because if Kiewit comes in later and says, hey, I want you to work Saturday or the middle of the night or Sundays, I want you to have an avenue to say, hey, I agree to a lump sum price, but you could say, hey, look, I told you that was only on straight time. So we don't want a small business to fail. We want to, and I think Tim said it, small business success is Kiewit success or Wildish's success or so that's important that you make money and that's kind of how you get in. I think one of the next questions I'm supposed to talk about is how did we get to work with our first job with ODOT and even on Abernathy and we bid on the Rose Quarter, and it's kind of like the subs. You got to provide the best value to ODOT, or they might like me, but they don't select me if I don't have the right price. So you have to have experience and pricing, and in fact we didn't get Rose Quarter, but we're happy to get Abernathy, and there's nothing easy about it, but it's but you need somebody that can work through the changes and be able to self-perform and partner with small businesses to be a success for the community and ODOT, and remember that the client and doing the job on time and on budget is important. So and then one of the other things I want to talk about, some of the things we've learned from or over time and successes, if you can get on a Kiewit project, every small business or DBE learns on a Kiewit project. We've been around for, I don't know if I said it, but 140 years. So we have processes and a kind of a template for everything we do. But you can learn from Kiewit's safety program, and every day we have a job hazard analysis, and we meet for quality and a play of the day, and so there's a schedule coordination meeting at least once a week or maybe even every day, just because there's such a coordination between the prime and all the subs and material suppliers. If you don't have that constant communication, then not everybody knows what's going to happen next and how you fit in. So and we do have repeat customers, and you can get on a Kiewit job if you have the right price. We'll encourage and solicit pricing from any subcontractor or DBE and encourage them to respond. But I think it does help, like Tim talked about. It's helpful if you've had some, before you get on a mega project, it'd be nice to have some public agency or public works experience, right? Because certified payroll, LCP tracker, MERS reports, making your apprenticeship goals. I mean, it's especially on federally funded jobs, there's a lot of requirements, right? And you got to have a little bit of help through the back room, and Kiewit can help. We were mindful of the commercially useful function. We can't help you do your work, but we have a lot of advice, and call me, right? So I'm not directly on most of these jobs, but I'm kind of here to support every DBE and every small business. So that's kind of the stuff I wanted to talk about. And then I think I talked a little bit about how we became a prime with ODOT by having the best price. And then like I say, we are a mentor, and every subcontractor is a protege. And in Seattle, I know we've had kind of some official, WashDOT had a mentor protege program and I was a mentor, and we had 3 proteges that we kind of worked with on that job. And then WashDOT kind of expanded it to include Sound Transit. Then they call it the capacity building mentorship program. But those businesses are somebody that you want to work with them over time. And there's a DBE or MBE steel fabricator that's in Washington State, but he's providing some steel for ODOT Abernathy. He's worked on some Army Corps jobs, at a fish passage job, and as those companies grow, we enjoy working with the companies that have grown as well with us, and we know, right? But if you give me the right price and show you can perform the work, we'll give you an opportunity. So I don't know if I missed anything, Omar, and I guarantee I'm past my 5 minute limit, which I tried to tell you. But anyway, if Omar shares that with you, you can get a hold of me anytime. Cell number's good, email's good, and I'll get back to you before too long. So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys. ODOT's a great client. We want to do more work down there, and I'm going to need help of every one of you when this interstate bridge finally kicks off. I mean, we have to win it. We got to give the right price. And like I say, it's too bad we didn't start a decade ago, but we're going to need a new bridge so we can travel between the two states. So I'm glad ODOT and WashDOT are working together on that one. So anything else, Omar?
That's really great, Dennis. I think you covered everything. If you just want to put your email and number in the chat again, just so the folks have it. But yeah, great information, Dennis. Thank you so much for sharing. Let me stop sharing my screen here real quick. Great. Yeah, so I'm just going to read out some of the questions that were in the chat that people were asking. If Dennis, Aaron, and Tim, if you have some opportunity or question or answers for that. So one here says from Haragu, Dennis, does Kiewit work with A&E sub-consultants?
So yes, I didn't hear that exact. Say it again. They're talking about engineering and architects, or I didn't quite hear it.
Yeah, with A&E sub-consultants.
Yeah, every job is a little bit different, and it's not the old-fashioned, design, bid, build, rip and read that, no offense to Tim, that he kind of remembers back in the olden days. He hasn't been around as long as me, but yeah. But sometimes, and a lot of times, to get selected by WashDOT or ODOT or these big agencies, sometimes you have to have a larger engineering firm or a design firm as a partner. But then what I can do is get Kiewit, the Kiewit engineering group or our large business engineering subs to hire lower tiers from the engineering and design side. So I don't know as much about that side of it as I do the construction, but certainly I'm a place to start. I'm not an engineer, but I have engineers on the right and estimators on the left, and I'm a good point of contact every time if I can help you some more.
Great, thank you, Dennis. And then on a similar note, Nancy is asking if also you use small certified businesses for non-construction work, which you might have touched on as well.
I'm trying to think. I'm not, sometimes there'll be something. Yeah, not usually. It's usually, or almost always, public works contractors. But I did have an area manager come in. He says, "Do you know any DBE landscapers that might?" A small one that might want to come out to my house. And I actually got a guy that says, "Hey, you don't use me." I said, this would be a good thing. Show up to this guy's house, do him a good job, and then you'll have an advocate for working on one of his Navy jobs or port jobs. And I think that's, and starting small and growing slowly is a good idea. So if that answers that partly, that's what I got.
Great, thank you, Dennis. And this question from Claxton Fernandez is might be for everybody. You all might have some insight on this, but his question is, where would a startup excavation firm fit in for a prime whom is also a heavy civil firm? Seems as if they would have the capability to take care of earthwork themselves. Which areas would we attempt to bid and fit into? Erosion control, construction entrances, etc. Any help would be appreciated.
I mean, I can chime in on this a little bit. Small scopes, like he's suggesting, are the best place to start. ODOT typically, depending on the funding sources, will have DB goals. If you're a DB certified firm, and we've done contracting for small amounts of pipe. We do pipe work, but towards meeting a goal or helping us meeting a goal, we will sub out, pipe work like small lateral runs or catch basins or stuff like that. So I would just say picking smaller scopes like that, erosion control, like silt fence, stuff like that's a good place to start, to quoting some of that stuff. And then, as we get comfortable or know capabilities of certain contractors, that scope may lead into more on that project or future projects. So picking small scopes and not overextending yourself, like was discussed earlier, is your best bet.
Yeah, this is Tim. I think that it would be pretty easy for a small civil guy to quote hourly to perform work. Say a crew of an operator, laborer, and a mini hoe of a certain size, and say for this particular project we're available, and our rate per hour for that crew is X, whatever it may be, and we'd be happy to take on any parts of the project that you would like us to. And yeah, we do that civil work ourselves, but we're all the time looking for DBE coverage for work. And I think that that hourly way of working is a way that you, the DBE, aren't taking a huge risk. And neither are we exposed by giving someone a $500,000 job. Maybe it's $50,000 worth of time and materials, hourly work, or maybe it's 100. So I think that's a really good avenue in for you to think about.
Yeah, and I don't think I can add anything more than Aaron and Tim did. That was great advice, right?
Great. Thank you, y'all. Great insight. Another question here from Haragu. Aaron, do you need engineers?
Well, what kind of engineers are you thinking about? We of course employ project engineers and field engineers to help administer our work and to support our construction teams. So those types of engineers, usually they're an employee. It's probably not impossible that they come from a DBE small or a small business. If you're talking about engineers to do design stuff and put stamps on things, sometimes false work and formwork designs need to be stamped. Sometimes traffic control plans need to be stamped, meaning with a PE stamp on them, a professional engineer stamp. So those types of engineers certainly are used from time to time. They're normally not a big dollar amount unless you happen to be on a design build project. And Dennis sort of referred to that when he was talking about engineering possibilities, but I hope that answers your question.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. And then, I mean, this is pretty similar to what that last question, but it says you need engineers for ADA ramp installation.
I would say, as far as that goes, I mean, the design build work that's coming out or has come out in that, yes. But on your typical design bid build projects, no, all those ramps have been engineered, or they're going to be more field fit type stuff. So on your average ODOT project, no, we wouldn't be needing engineers for that. But on any of the design build stuff, unfortunately for smaller contractors, that's kind of out of the realm for being a big partner, because it takes a big effort and a lot of knowledge in that field. But there are sub-consultants to those big firms, and typically those aren't contracted through us as the prime, construction contractor. They would be a sub-consultant under our partner, our primary architect, our engineering firm partner. So
Great. Thank you, Aaron. Great info. Let me see if there's any other questions that I see on here. And if there's any other questions that you all have, please drop them in the chat. We're approaching the end of our meeting here, so any final questions or notes that you might have for prime contractors, definitely drop them on here. But I don't think I see any other questions that I see on here. Oh, here's one. Tim, are you family to Jimi Hendrix, the world's greatest guitarist?
Okay, let's take a look at the picture of me, okay, the video. I think you can get that figured out. So I'm not going to answer that directly, and I can barely pick a guitar, so I doubt if I am related. And Dennis, no matter how old you are, I'm a lot older than you. You just don't know it, buddy.
I didn't, you can't see him in the background, but I don't want to say I've been around a while, but I found in my old general construction boxes before we went to Abernathy, I saw one of our floating cranes, steam powered floating cranes for the old general construction, driving the test piles for the original Abernathy Bridge. I wasn't working in 1967, but I've been on that floating crane that ran by steam and those barges. So it's kind of cool, kind of full circle from when we started and we're back in the Willamette River. So we're happy to do that. And I better keep Omar on time. But the one other bit of advice, kind of for everybody, and Tim would probably use this. I think having every small business or DB keep working on your project resume as you get a job and complete a job. You know, tell me what you've done and who you work for. I mean, if you work for Wildish, and I know you're successful. If you've worked for one of my competitors, if you work for Stacy Whitbeck or Hoffman or Howard S. Wright, or it doesn't have to be the big guys, but whether you got your experience working for another contractor before you went on your own, but brag a little bit about yourself and put it on paper, right? So that's one other little bit of advice. So thanks, Omar. I think that's all I got, and you can stay on time. And thanks for having me. I enjoyed coming on with everybody.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you so much, everybody. We really appreciate it. Just some final notes here as we end here. So first of all, thank you so much to all participants who were here today. We really appreciate you being here and sharing great and hearing great information. Thank you to the presenters and the prime contractors as well. Very valuable insight and tips so that these firms could definitely learn and grow. Another thank you to our interpreters who are behind the scenes doing great interpretation work that I was listening to. Thank you so much. Great work, great work. They're going to become experts after this as well. Any other questions, please feel free to reach out to Joe and myself. We'll put our emails here in the chat for you all. We'll definitely be following up with the recording of this presentation. We'll follow up with the slides, the contact information for the presenters as well. So